How's it? Welcome back. So I got another comment to go ahead and shoot a quick response to. Although I'm pretty positive that the person who left this comment wasn't expecting a video response to it. And I wasn't even really thinking about that either. But as I was like typing up my response in the comments, I thought, this would be a pretty good topic for a quick video. So the comment came in on one of my recent posts where I was talking about this book in particular, the Practical Psychic Self-Defense Handbook, which, I've had for a little over a week now, started reading it. It actually is pretty interesting. But in that video, wasn't even really talking about the book in particular all that much. It was kind of more talking about just my general belief and views towards things and how I do try as often as I can to kind of push on my belief systems and things like that. But the comment came in from Luke on YouTube, and he was basically asking, do I consider myself to be a strict materialist? And initially I was thinking, a strict materialist? Well, no. I mean, I think I would definitely be a materialist, but I try not to be too strict about it. But then as I thought about it more and just kind of being honest with my belief systems that are just stuck in me, kind of, whatever your belief systems are, they're kind of hard to change, right? And so after looking at it a bit closer, I think I probably am a little bit strict with it, although I try not to be. And so what I thought I would talk about for this video is some of the pros and cons that have come from this general belief or point of view that I have towards things. So I guess to do the pros first, my strict materialistic point of view on things, it really has made me a lot braver in the dream world, right? Where I have 0% fear of like being possessed, for example. Although I have had one nightmarish dream where I was having sleep paralysis, and the sleep paralysis demon dude came in, and I was trying to stay in that environment because I'm not actually, truly scared of it, although it is a really freaky and terrifying experience. But then it ends up like grabbing my hand and really felt like I was being possessed. I didn't even know I knew what it felt like to be possessed. Although I guess I would have some blueprints for what that should feel like just from like watching movies and things like that. But that was super freaky. But, I'm not actually scared of truly being possessed, in any situation like that. I'm not scared of demons, within the dream realm. I'm not scared of being stuck out of body if I'm having an OBE type experience and I'm actually find myself to be like in my bedroom, for example. I mean, if I'm having like multiple false awakenings, I'm not scared of actually getting stuck in the dream world and things like that. But then even on like more of the, waking world side of things, my materialistic standpoint, also makes me not scared at all of ghosts or spirits or poltergeists or, some of the things that he talks about in here as well. So it does make me a lot, I guess braver in that sense as well in the waking world. And like I guess I shouldn't say too much about her because then some people might be able to search her out. But one of my buddies in waking life, she's, really like scared of Ouija boards and stuff like that. And I have also had some freaky Ouija board experiences. Like a long time ago, we were having a camp out, a group on a horse ranch. So we had a bunch of the kids, we're all staying down there in this big tent. We bust out a Ouija board and it's like, oh, this bad thing's gonna happen. The name of the spirit, I think, was Harold, if I remember correctly. It's like, oh, something bad's gonna happen. And then our tent fell over and we all freaked out and ran out. But even with, situations like that, I still don't believe in Ouija boards at all. And then after I'm also having this long talk with her, probably like a year and a half ago. It's been a while, but so I got a Ouija board myself just to kind of go ahead and try and test it out and see if it would, do anything for me. And my plan when I got the Ouija board was to go ahead and make a video on it, which I guess I could do, but, that just kind of fell by the wayside. But, so I'm not scared of Ouija boards. I'm not scared of ghosts. And I have gone on a bunch of ghost hunts, and I have had ghost-like experiences kind of pop up here and there in my life. But truly, I'm not actually too worried about ghosts and spirits because, I haven't found any hard proof of them. And I used to go ghost hunting a lot. The horse ranch I grew up on, supposed to be pretty haunted. And I used to when it's probably like late high school years. But I used to, go off, and I was living on this horse ranch by myself at the time, at nighttime at least. My parents were there in the daytime. But I would go off and just wander around, on the trails, which there's like homeless people there, so that probably was a little bit sketchy. Although the homeless people that have been there, at least when I was still living there, they were always pretty cool, and they would kind of stay off on their side. And if my parents would see them making a campsite too close to one of the horse trails and tell them to move, they would generally move. And never had any bad things happen. But I've gone on a bunch of ghost hunts, couldn't find any ghosts or anything like that. So that would be some of the positives to it. However, I would say there's a bunch of cons that kind of come along with this general view or standpoint as well. Like, at least on the dream side of things, it certainly has put blockages and experiences that I have tried to prove to myself over the years. Like, the first one that comes to mind would be shared dream experiences, where I've tried a bunch of times with different people over the years to try and have a shared dream experience, because I have had dreams that really seemed like, this was outside of me doing the experiments, that I really was having this shared dream experience with, whoever it be. My kids, for example, that's probably the best one. I used to dream about my older son a lot. And when he was born was also when I was really starting to get into this dream work practice for real. And I would have all these dreams with him, and I would take him flying and stuff like that. And I'd wake him up and be like, hey, what'd you dream? Do you remember your dreams, first of all? And the extreme majority of the time, he just wouldn't even be able to recall his dreams. But it's like, man, I took you flying. Do you remember seeing me or anything like that? But all of those have tend to miss. And even later on, when I would try to do those experiments with typically people in the community, so somebody who I don't know personally, but we would agree on certain nights we'd try to meet up in our dreams and report back to each other. All of those have missed for the most part. I've had some kind of close hits, but then they never reported back having a similar dream. But I think that my general belief that it isn't possible absolutely puts a roadblock in my way of, even if not proving that it's a thing for real, just in me having the experience of it within the dream, I'm certain that it has put certain blockages in that. And then even when it comes to some of the more astral projection side of things, like I think if I had a strong belief that I would do, A, B, and C, I could get to some fantastical astral realm. I think if my belief was set that that was truly possible, it would make it easier for me to get to those more fantastical dream realms, when for now I gotta just basically do it off of pure intention. And then when I also, if I had a belief in my head that was a real place, I think it would make me trying to do it, even if I am doing it through pure intention, would probably be easier to come by. I guess OBEs and things like that. Now, I have a pretty strong belief that that's not possible, like being able to spy on your neighbors or things like that. But I have given that a try. Doesn't happen too often. Even when I do have a more wild-like experience and go directly from awake, where most of the time people trying to have OBEs will try have it in that scenario, and then they they rise up out of their body in their bedroom right next to their bed or something. That's happened to me occasionally, but it's super rare. What tends to happen is I just go from awake into a hypnagogic scene, right? And then I have a wild or awake initiated lucid dream, or enter into some completely different dream environment. So I'm sure, my general belief there has kind of stopped me from having the dream or the experience of actually getting up and being in my bedroom and stuff like that. And then some waking life ways that this general belief towards materialism has screwed me up would be things like religion, for example. And I recently went to church on Easter for the first time ever in my whole life, where like going to church was actually my plan to go ahead and do this. And I liked it. It was cool there. I used to go to church a lot when I was a kid, by force, essentially. My mom would just make us go, but it was cool. The people there were really fun. It was a nice message. I liked, what the preacher was saying. I got to hang out with a buddy of mine an internet buddy of mine who I don't get to see, in person barely ever. So it was cool to meet him there. The message that was being sent was really good. I know that religion has helped out a lot of people in their life to get over, major roadblocks that they were facing. I'm sure that a belief in that would be extremely beneficial if you're facing death, or, say you're just getting older and death is coming. I think it would be very comforting to have that belief. And I would hope that by the time I get really old, I would kind of hope that I can kind of change my perspective or view on this stuff. But, it being Easter, the preacher was talking a lot about how Jesus rose from the dead. And like when it comes to that, and that's a big pillar of Christianity, at least some sects of it, right? Is like, man, I cannot get myself to believe it. I would like to believe it's true, but if I just honestly look at it myself, I just can't get over that hump to really believe that that is a thing and that it did truly indeed happen. And then this is kind of related to this, but maybe a little bit different. But I think this may be totally different, but I'm also pretty distrusting of people right? And not so much of people or individuals, I'd say more like of groups and organizations and things like that. And so this, what I'm thinking of particularly right now would be like, say with binaural beats or hemisync technology, even light frequency type of stuff, where I absolutely agree that those tools can be extremely useful for your meditation and help you get to deeper meditative states. And I guess there is some science behind the binaural beats, having your brainwaves sync up to it and stuff like that. But I'm just not sure how useful or how helpful, that actually is. And as I've said in various videos when I'm talking about binaural beats versus just like generic meditation music, to me, I get the same results off of generic meditation music. And I think something that could be causing me to get the same results is I just have this kind of blockage of believing that the hemisync stuff actually helps and works. Even though I know it can be beneficial, I just don't have a hard time believing that it works, the way that they claim it is supposed to work. And then lastly, I guess I'll just close it off with this. But so for me, right, I'm a licensed massage therapist. I went to school. I used to work in a clinic and do all the things like that. And I truly believe that massage can be useful and beneficial for people, right? But I also have this kind of nagging thing in my head where I wonder like how useful or how helpful it actually is, right? And I've had people give me great feedback, where some of my regulars who would come into the clinic would tell me I really helped them out with the various injuries or things that they're dealing with. And I'm sure it did aid in a way, but then I also wonder how much of that was, the placebo effect or just the fact that I had a really good relationship with them. And then I think also this basically just doubt. You could even think maybe like just doubt in myself as well probably comes into play here. I think if I had a stronger belief in, say, massage truly being that helpful, I think that would have made me a better masseuse, or I'd be better at actually doing my job with that. And so just yet another way that I think my general, whether it's materialism or just my doubt in people and things and organizations and even myself, has kind of screwed me in my life in a way. But yeah, with that said, this video rambled on way longer than I was expecting, but we'll leave it with that. And for the next video, keep your beliefs legit.